The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Soulcatcher Simp. A sleepless night. I suffer from hella bad insomnia. And often, when it gets real late, I find myself, or real early in the morning, I find myself thinking about the past. Art criticism is really important, and I think art criticism, like literature criticism, film criticism, games criticism, music criticism, art criticism is an art form unto itself. And I think that truly great reviews, truly great analysis videos, truly great studies of fiction teach you a lot about the reviewer, about the analyzer. Today, I think we're going to learn a lot more about me than we are about Locke Lamora. Today, we're going to learn a lot about me. First of all, though I credit The Black Company with being the series that made me fall in love with fantasy forever, The Black Company will forever be my favorite fantasy series. My top three fantasy series are The Black Company, Gentleman Bastard, and Malazan is definitely there now. It's so good so far. The Lies of Locke Lamora is the first true fantasy book that I read, though. Like, I bought this such a long time ago. I wanted to like fantasy, but all the popular fantasy, at least in the late 2000s, early 2010s, seemed like Tolkien obsessed, hyper positive, fucking, I don't know, self-congratulatory jerk off literature. Uh, just fantasizing or romanticizing the same bullshit Joseph Campbell structure over and over and over again. Like, I couldn't give a fuck about a hero's journey. Like, can we please do something different? uh, the Black Company introduced me to grimdark proper, and ever since then, I'm like, God, fantasy is beautiful. But The Lies of Locke Lamora was the first fantasy book I truly loved. And why did I love it? Let's get personal for a second here. The Lies of Locke Lamora is a lot like Oliver Twist. It's Dickensian. It's a Dickensian fantasy, ultimately. And I love Oliver Twist. I know it has a lot of problems, especially a lot of problems with modern readers, but I've always loved this classic book, and it's because I've always loved tales of street kids. Why did I always love tales of street kids? Well, because I was one. Without going into too much detail about my childhood, my mom was uh if my if my childhood had a primary antagonist, it would have been my mom. So um I mean, the first time she kicked me out of the house, I was like 9 years old, and she threw me out of the house naked. It was humiliating and scary, and she wouldn't let me back in for days. She would often kick me out in my teens, and I would couch surf, just do a bunch of drugs and just pass out behind a bridge kind of thing at like 14. So by the time I was 18, I was obsessed with the beat writers, Jack Kerouac, On the Road. I wanted to be Dean Moriarty. I was insufferable. I was entirely predictable. I was the archetypal 18-year-old in the year 2008, right? 18-year-old guy, and went on the road with a friend, and ultimately, like, we parted ways, and I ended up hitchhiking across the country and all this stuff. And I spent a lot of time in places like Indiana, places like California, with other kids, other teenagers, other young people who were doing the exact same thing that I was. And of course, heavy drugs were involved. Criminality was kind of uh, the most enduring quality of each street kid community that I found myself within. I did feel like, the Artful Dodger. I did feel like I was in a Dickens book. I did feel like I was in Oliver and Company, even. And all of us street kids felt dirty, broke, beautiful, and free. There was this like anarchist appeal to it as well. It was like political. It was everything. It was a way of life. Eventually, the nihilism got a little bit too unbearable, and I ended up coming back to my family. And hi, I'm here now. I'm alive. A lot of those street kids aren't alive, and a lot of them didn't die, quick. Yeah, I was luckily able to kick certain habits and able to change my lifestyle to conform more to society at large. But a lot of the other people that I spent a lot of intimate time with during my street kid days just couldn't do it. It wasn't a part of their character. It wasn't a part of their blood. Uh, they couldn't fake it, and a lot of them are dead. So when insomnia strikes and I find myself up super late at night, I often think about the past. I think about almost half remembered faces. Uh, Not even full names. There are names like Casey, names like Jamina, but most of the names were totally fake. There was a chick called Half Pint, right? Hell, my name wasn't my actual name. I made up a name and I used that one instead. I spent a lot of time in a camp with this drug dealer and his girlfriend, and the drug dealer's name was Nobody. Because if you ever got arrested and they asked you who gave you those drugs, who gave you the smack, you had to say nobody gave me them. Nobody did, because that's the name that he provided, was Nobody. So I think of these nicknames and monikers and double identities. I think of con artists and low lives, and I think of them as beautiful people. I romanticize the criminality of my turbulent and chaotic and anarchic past. And I think that my history as a homeless youth, and then like further on as like a street kid who deliberately tried to live a certain chaotic, nihilistic, borderline criminal lifestyle. But it was punk. I was into punk music, guys. It wasn't like that serious, but still, I think that's why I loved The Lies of Locke Lamora as much as I did when I first read it. And I've read it at least 4 times, 4 or 5 times. Uh, I think it's so clever, and I think it captures the romantic pity with which I used to view the true nonconformists of my youth, or my own true nonconformity within my inner child. I think that the Lies of Locke Lamora really captures that. I think that Scott Lynch is incredibly clever and super creative, super inventive. I love his characters so much. I mean, Locke Lamora is one of the greatest main characters in a fantasy series. I often find myself loving secondary characters a lot more than the main characters. That seems to be a flaw that's primarily associated with fantasy in my head. But Locke is such a cool character. I love all of his flaws. I love his philosophy. I love his psychology. I love Jean. I love this friendship that they have. I love all the gentlemen bastards. I love the tragedies that Lynch just mercilessly drowns us with. I love all of the character deaths. He got me too. Like I think the meme is, Scott Lynch loves to murder characters, in the worst possible ways. And he got me. I loved a character in this book called Nazca Barsavi. I thought she was super clever. One of my favorite parts of this entire book is about when Locke first meets like the Kappa, like one of the kingpins of crime, um, Kappa Barsavi, and his daughter sitting on his lap. Nazca, who is like cruel and psychotic and vicious and hyper intelligent, and I love that sequence so much when both Locke and Nazca are children. Like she's telegraphed to play such a heavy role within this narrative, within this fantasy series, only for Lynch to go, I love teasing my readers, and she dies off screen, but we do get to see her corpse in a fucking barrel full of urine. I love Nazca, but I think that speaks to how almost effortless the brilliance of Lynch's characterization is. Like, all he has to do is work with portraits, and you know these characters so intimately immediately. And that goes for Bug, Callow, Galdo, Chains. Case in point, another one of my favorite characters is Don Maranzala. He operates a brutal, exclusive school where he teaches mostly young nobles how to fight, and Jean learns how to fight from him. I think he even gets the sisters from him as two fucking hatchets, which are two of the coolest weapons in all of fantasy. I love him because it's like a portrait, right? A portrait that Lynch is sketching. We don't spend a hell of a lot of time with Don Maranzala, but all Lynch has to do there is briefly describe the House of Glass Roses, and I know everything that I need to know about this scenario, and I'm in love poetically with everything about this scenario. House of Glass Roses, that's one of my favorite places in all of fantasy, too. Like, I think it sounds so cool. You know, with the blood going on the glass roses, making them red. Like, dude, I fucking love it. And that's where you learn how to that's where you learn combat. That's where you learn how to fight with swords and hatchets and shit, with knives and daggers. That's where you learn. I love that. That's so cool to me. That is fucking awesome to me. So many parts of this is just fucking awesome to me. I mentioned Chains earlier. I think that simultaneously what Lynch is doing is uh, a clever deconstruction of Dickensian elements, Chains being the Fagin of this story. And this story has its fair share of Oliver Twists and Nancy's and Bill Sykes and Artful Dodgers. It has plenty to go around, but Lynch is always doing something fascinating with these rather Dickensian archetypes. I do love the world building. I think it's an entirely clever book. I think it's a beautiful caper, a wonderful heist story, a wonderful story of a con artist. And of course, every great story about the artistry of the con has to involve tricking and conning the reader as well. Eventually, Locke will swindle you. Eventually, Locke will beat you. Locke will trick you. Eventually, in some way. That's one of the great pleasures of this book, is being tricked by Scott Lynch, being tricked by Locke Lamora himself. The Lies of Locke Lamora. I think it's a true classic of fantasy. And although a lot of people will say that this is the best in the series and that you don't even need to read the other two, I've heard a lot of shit talk about the other two. I think its sequel, Red Seas Under Red Skies, is an improvement, is better than this book. It's my favorite book in the series, which makes it one of my favorite fantasy books ever written. And I'm happy to say that the next video on this channel will be a full analysis of Red Seas Under Red Skies. But I hope that you found something of value within this video, because I tried to be personal, I tried to be emotional and real, and I tried to provide some decent insight about just why this story endures with what I believe is a certain kind of misfit quadrant of fantasy readers. You know, a truly misfit group, a truly nonconformist group, or at least a group who loves to romanticize nonconformity, who love to romanticize misfit identities, and who love to romanticize the darker edges, the darker frameworks of literature itself. You know, and because it comes with a certain amount of sardonic fun and anarchic glee, and that's really the treatment. If Scott Lynch treats grimdark in a certain way, it's with glee, it's with mania, and it's with a deathly grin. Really, Lies of Locke Lamora is great, but I doubt that you needed me to tell you this. Lies of Locke Lamora is great. I think it's a masterpiece of fantasy literature, and thank you so much for letting me make this video. I think I had to get some of this stuff off my chest, because when I think of Locke Lamora, before I think of any particular scene or any particular character, I think of me, particularly me, when I was 18. I think of me, particularly me, when I was kicked out of the house when I was a child. I think of me, particularly me, coming up with schemes with my street kid friends on the streets of San Francisco, California, about how we can hustle that day, about how we're gonna hustle cigarettes, how we're gonna get our food, how we're gonna hustle some drugs, some drink, how we're gonna steal the freedom that we think that we deserve, how we're gonna liberate our environment, how we're gonna liberate the free will that exists in our world but is restricted, is kept away from us. How are we going to liberate our world in order to accommodate our appetite for destruction, for freedom, uh, for the love of the game, for the scheme. That's it. Soul Catcher Simp, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video, which is about Red Seas Under Red Skies. Any Scott Lynch fans out there right now? It's nice to meet you. Welcome. Subscribe, like, comment. Did this book hit you on a personal level like it did me? I think that it hits a lot of people on personal levels. And I don't mean like you have to be like a homeless thief, right? Like I think you could be anything and get a lot from this book. But I think you have to have maybe a semi-secretive wish uh to be a little fucking bad. I think you have to want to root for the bad guy. I think the people who get the most out of this book want to be the bad guy that people are rooting for. Thank you so much for watching me.